If you walk into a house built before the 1960s and look straight up at the highest point of the ceiling in the hallway or stairwell, you might notice something modern homes don't have. A small covered opening, sometimes disguised as a decorative grille, sometimes hidden behind a hinged panel. Most homeowners today have no idea what it was for. Many have painted over it, some have sealed it shut without ever asking why it was there in the first place. That small opening was once one of the most effective cooling systems in the house, and it worked without a single moving part, without electricity, and without costing a cent to run. This is the story of the heat dump vent, the forgotten mechanism that let older homes stay livable through brutal summers decades before air conditioning existed. And the physics behind it are so simple that once you understand them, you'll start noticing the same principle hiding in buildings all around you. To understand why that vent existed, you have to understand the problem builders were fighting before mechanical cooling was an option. Heat rises. It's one of the most basic facts of physics, but it creates a very specific problem inside a sealed building. As the sun beats down on a roof through the day, the attic space above the living area can climb past 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That heat doesn't stay politely contained up there. It radiates downward through the ceiling material, and it also gets pulled into the living space through convection, especially if there's any air movement between floors. By late afternoon, the hottest air in the entire house has collected right at ceiling height, exactly where people are standing, sitting, and trying to sleep. Opening a window low on the wall does almost nothing to solve this because the hot air is trapped above you, and cooler air entering near the floor has no path to push it out. Builders in hot climates figured this out centuries before thermostats existed. In the American South, in Mediterranean architecture, in colonial buildings throughout Southeast Asia, and in traditional homes across the Middle East, you find the same recurring idea expressed in different forms. Give hot air a deliberate escape route near the highest point of the structure, and give cooler air a deliberate entry point near the lowest point. The result is a continuous, self-powered current of air moving through the building, driven entirely by temperature difference. Engineers call this the stack effect, and it's the same principle that makes smoke rise up a chimney. Warm air is less dense than cool air, so it naturally rises and escapes through any high opening available to it. As it leaves, it creates a slight vacuum that pulls replacement air in from lower, cooler openings. No fan required, no electricity required, just a temperature difference and a clear path for air to travel. The vent above the ceiling was the domestic version of this principle, scaled down to fit inside a single house. In many pre-war homes, especially in the American South and in Australian Federation-era houses, that ceiling vent connected the hallway or stairwell directly to the attic space, and the attic itself had additional venting to the outside through gable vents, ridge vents, or a small rooftop cupola. During the day, as the attic heated up and that heat pushed down into the living space, opening the ceiling vent let that trapped hot air escape upward into the attic and then straight out through the roof vents, rather than lingering at head height in the rooms below. At night, when outdoor temperatures dropped, the same vent could be left open to let the day's accumulated heat continue draining out of the house, even while people slept, cooling the structure down before the next day's heat began building again. This wasn't a one-off gimmick found in a handful of eccentric buildings. It was a standard design feature across huge swaths of pre-air conditioning architecture, and it took several different physical forms depending on region and era. In grander homes, you'll often find a cupola, a small windowed structure sitting on top of the roof, sometimes purely decorative looking today, but originally functional. The cupola's windows could be opened to let hot air escape from the highest point of the house, essentially acting as a chimney for heat instead of smoke. Southern plantation houses and Victorian-era homes throughout the eastern United States frequently included these, along with tall ceilings on lower floors specifically designed to give hot air somewhere to collect before it could be vented out, rather than sitting directly on the heads of the people living below. In more modest homes, the same idea appeared as a simple hinged or sliding panel set into the hallway ceiling, sometimes called a scuttle vent, connecting the living space to the attic. Some versions used a pull chain so the vent could be opened or closed from below without needing a ladder. Others were built into a decorative grille above a doorway, a style that also shows up as transom windows, the small hinged glass panels above interior doors in old homes that most people today assume were only there for extra light. In reality, transoms did double duty. They let light pass from room to room, but they could also be cracked open to let hot air continue its journey from one room to the next, following the pressure gradient all the way up toward the highest vent in the house and finally outside. What made the system genuinely clever, rather than just a lucky accident of old-fashioned design, is how it worked in combination with the rest of the house's architecture. Tall ceilings weren't just an aesthetic choice reflecting Victorian grandeur. A ceiling height of 10 or 12 feet, compared to the 8-foot ceilings common in modern construction, gives hot air significantly more room to stratify above head level before it becomes uncomfortable. That stratified layer of hot air near the ceiling then had a clear, deliberate path out through the vent, rather than being trapped with nowhere to go. Deep porches and covered verandas shaded the walls and windows from direct sun. Operable windows on the shaded, cooler side of the house provided the intake air for the stack effect, while the heat dump vents at the highest point provided the exhaust. The whole house functioned as a single connected airflow system, not just a collection of individually sealed rooms. This approach performed best in climates with a meaningful day-to-night temperature swing, which describes most of the American South, the Mediterranean, and much of Australia during summer. If the outdoor air cools down significantly at night, opening up the stack ventilation system lets the house purge its stored heat and effectively reset before the next day's sun arrives. In climates where nighttime temperatures stay high, the effect is much weaker, because there's no meaningfully cooler air available to pull in as replacement, and this is one of the real limitations of passive stack cooling that gets left out of a lot of modern nostalgia around it. It's also far less effective in humid climates, since moving warm, humid air out doesn't address the discomfort caused by high humidity itself, which is a separate problem that passive ventilation alone can't solve. Stack ventilation also depends heavily on having an unobstructed vertical path for air to travel, which is why it worked so well in tall, open stairwells and central hallways, but struggled in homes with lots of small, closed-off rooms. So, if the system worked, and worked without costing anything to run, why did it disappear almost completely from home construction? The honest answer is that it didn't fail on its own merits. It was outcompeted. Mechanical air conditioning, once it became affordable for the average household starting in the 1950s and accelerating through the 1960s and 70s, offered something passive ventilation never could: precise, consistent, on-demand cooling regardless of what the weather outside was doing. A homeowner with central air didn't need to think about which windows to open, which vents to crack, or what time of day to purge heat from the attic. They just set a thermostat. Builders responded to that shift by designing homes around mechanical systems instead of passive airflow. Ceiling heights dropped to reduce construction costs and heating bills in winter. Attic vents got sealed up or removed entirely because an unsealed attic connection was now seen as a liability, letting conditioned air leak out and unconditioned air leak in, effectively working against the new air conditioning system, rather than supporting it. The entire logic of home design flipped from working with the stack effect to fighting against any uncontrolled airflow whatsoever. There's a real irony buried in that shift, and it's one that building scientists have become increasingly vocal about in the last 2 decades. Sealing a house completely and cooling it entirely with mechanical air conditioning works well right up until the power goes out. The system breaks down, or energy costs climb high enough that running it constantly becomes a real financial burden. A tightly sealed, low-ceilinged modern home with no passive ventilation strategy can become dangerously hot, far faster than an older home with a functioning stack ventilation system, precisely because that older home had a built-in backup plan that never depended on the power grid. That's part of why interest in this old approach has been quietly building among architects, builders, and building scientists working on passive cooling and net zero energy design. You'll find modern versions of the same principle in contemporary green building, though they usually go by more technical names. Solar chimneys use a dark-colored, sun-exposed vertical shaft, sometimes built into an exterior wall, to actively accelerate the stack effect. The shaft absorbs solar heat, which makes the air inside it rise faster and more forcefully than it would in an ordinary vent, pulling air through the building more aggressively, even on days with only a modest temperature difference to work with. Whole house fans, which mount in the ceiling and mechanically pull hot attic air upward and out, are essentially a motorized descendant of that old scuttle vent, trading pure passive operation for a fan that can move much larger volumes of air on demand, typically used at night to flush a day's accumulated heat out of the house in a matter of minutes. Ridge and soffit venting, now a standard requirement in most modern roofing codes, is the direct descendant of the old cupola and gable vent combination, engineered with modern calculations to move a specific volume of air continuously through the attic space and keep it from ever building up extreme heat in the first place, which also protects roofing materials and reduces how much heat transfers down into the living space below. There are also newer hybrid approaches worth understanding, because they show how far the underlying principle has evolved. Some contemporary passive house designs incorporate what's called a thermal chimney combined with a heat recovery ventilator, allowing a building to exhaust hot, stale air through a stack effect pathway while simultaneously capturing some of that outgoing heat energy in winter to preheat incoming fresh air, essentially getting the benefits of natural convection cooling in summer and energy-efficient heat recovery in winter from a single integrated system. This kind of design is still relatively niche, mostly appearing in high-performance custom builds and demonstration projects rather than standard tract housing. And it requires careful engineering to work correctly, since getting the airflow calculations wrong can leave a building either poorly ventilated or losing more conditioned air than intended. Cost is where the older, simpler version of this idea still holds a genuine advantage. A basic passive vent system, whether it's a ridge vent, a gable vent, or an operable cupola, has essentially no ongoing energy cost and minimal maintenance requirements beyond making sure the opening stays clear of debris, nesting insects, or accumulated dust. A whole house fan sits in the middle, requiring a modest amount of electricity to run, but far less than central air conditioning, and needs occasional maintenance on the fan motor and any automated shutters. A full solar chimney or a hybrid heat recovery system requires the most upfront investment and the most careful installation, but delivers the most consistent year-round performance. None of these options work in isolation from the rest of the building's design. Insulation levels, window placement, shading, and ceiling height all still matter enormously, exactly as they did a century ago. And a passive vent added to an otherwise poorly designed, poorly insulated house won't perform anywhere near as well as the same vent installed as part of a coherent overall strategy. If you've enjoyed learning how a simple opening in a ceiling once did the job we now assign to compressors and refrigerant lines, subscribing helps this kind of forgotten engineering keep getting the attention it deserves, and there's plenty more of it still waiting to be rediscovered. The next time you're in an older building, whether it's a historic home, a converted barn, or even a grand public building from the early 20th century, take a moment to look up. Check the highest points of the hallways and stairwells. Look for a small grille, a decorative panel that seems oddly placed, or a windowed structure sitting on the roofline that looks more ornamental than functional. There's a real chance you're looking at a piece of forgotten climate engineering, installed by builders who understood heat, airflow, and pressure differences well enough to keep an entire house comfortable using nothing but the physics of hot air rising. The question worth sitting with is this: how many other problems that we now solve with electricity and machinery were already solved decades or centuries ago by someone who simply understood the shape of the air moving through a room?